Welcome to this episode of Eureka, and we are going to have a very wonderful conversation with Dr. R.K. Kotnala. I'm sure you all would have heard about stories of how some magician or somebody with magical power were able to light a lamp with just water and not oil. Maybe they are all just stories, but perhaps that can become a reality in a different sense just by using water at room temperature. Can you produce electricity? Our guest today, Dr. R.K. Kotnala, has done that revolution and we are going to talk about it. Keep watching Eureka, but before we continue with our conversation, we'll have a small introduction about him. We'll watch a small film about him and then we'll continue the conversation. Keep watching Eureka.
The ever-increasing demand for energy has led many scientists to work on clean material technologies. And prominent among these scientists is Dr. R.K. Kotnala. Dr. Kotnala is heading the Environmental Sciences and Biomedical Metrology Division at National Physics Laboratory in New Delhi. With an experience of 33 years as scientist, Dr. Kotnala completed his doctorate in Silicon Solar Cell from IIT Delhi. His experience in areas like spintronics, electric materials, spin Hall effect, humidity center, solar cell, and hydroelectric cell stands him apart. Dr. Kotnala's professional career scaled a new high when he, along with his colleague Dr. Jyoti Shah, invented the hydroelectric cell in 2016. Hydroelectric cell is a green energy device which runs on water without using acid or alkali. This device can be used in rural areas for their basic need for electricity required for bulbs and lamps. Recipient of many national and international awards and recognitions, Dr. Kotnala has also published over 360 research papers in international journals. He also has 9 patents in his name.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, being with us. It's a very wonderful opportunity for us. You've done a very wonderful job. Lots of media, international, national, is talking about you and your wonderful research. You have named this as hydroelectric cell, right?
Right.
Can you tell us something about this cell? What does it do?
Hydroelectric cell, a material which is magnesium ferrite substituted by lithium. When we put a water on it, then it dissociates it into H plus ion and OH ion, means hydrogen ion.
That is H2O is split into H and OH.
OH ion.
That is, there are 2 hydrogen and 1 oxygen, but you are splitting it like 1 hydrogen, but whereas you are keeping the other oxygen and hydrogen together.
Right.
You are splitting it like that.
Correct.
Yeah, fine.
Right.
So what has happened then?
But once we get these 2 ions, if we wish to have electricity out of it, then these ions have to be separated and collected.
Okay.
So for that matter, we have designed a electrochemistry, 2 electrodes, utilizing electrochemistry, and as a 2 electrodes on this material, magnesium ferrite, we have put on one face the silver as the cathode, and on the other face we have put zinc as anode.
Okay. Okay. So, if I mean, I have to use a kind of an analogy. This is something like a battery, but whereas in a battery you have an electrolyte, I mean a special chemical that you create by spending energy, and then you are putting inside a battery, and there is a cathode and a anode, and because of the chemical reaction inside, that chemical divides into 2. When they divide into 2, one is positively charged, the other is negatively charged, and because they are moving away, electricity is produced. It's very similar to that, if I am correct, right?
You are very correct. It is similar to the cell, electrochemical cell. we are doing it without using any electrolyte, no chemical,
And just water.
just water,
Okay.
and that too material which have been used not at all toxic, because if you talk about lead, you talk about lithium, they have their own toxicity, even ammonium chloride which is used in dry cell.
Okay.
So later these are all are toxic. But
So,
here-
which essentially means that this is much more versatile, I mean, because if it is a battery, it need not be centrally produced in one place. I mean, it can be put inside your car, it can be put inside your scooter, it can be put in your device, let's say mobile. It can work without necessarily centrally producing electricity. That's what is the very important aspect of this discovery. Am I correct?
you are very correct. It is a portable, it's very light compared to the even ordinary battery, and also it has a lot of other advantages which are not existing in batteries.
Okay. Now, let me come to understand this slightly more. Okay, I have water which you want to split into hydrogen and OH ion.
Right.
Okay. So, how do you exactly do it? Can you kind of elaborate a bit?
But it is very difficult and complicated. All over the world for last 70 years the people are trying that how to produce directly electricity from the water through a material.
Okay.
But they were using ultraviolet light and some catalyst. Here we are not doing anything. What we did, we developed a material, lithium substituted magnesium ferrite, and we changed all processing in different steps so that it gets us this ferrite oxygen deficient. And being a oxygen deficient, then electrons are trapped in it. Once those are trapped, it directly takes water molecule closer to it, and there lithium and magnesium atoms which are on the surface of the material,
Okay.
they immediately take out OH ion out of it.
Okay.
So once the OH ion is taken away, then H plus ion is available, and that H plus ion is getting trapped in nanopores which we have created by processing in material, and that H plus ion generates a very high electric field inside the pore, where other water molecules which are coming in contact, they are being directly dissociated into H plus ion and OH ion spontaneously.
One thing that makes science different from magic is the principles are very solid. Okay, one of the fundamental principles of science is that energy can be neither created nor destroyed. You only change. If I have a solar cell, it takes the energy from the sun and converts it into electricity. But how does that account in your work?
In our this material, because we have prepared it already oxygen deficient, where already initially chemisorption, chemical reaction happens on the surface of the material. So then energy is released. During that energy is now in the form of ions. So those ions are now collected in nanopores. Nanopores are further dissociating water molecule. So it is a basically transferring of the energy, I will call it this way, from material science to nanoscience, nanopores, and then finally as a electrochemistry, we are taking it on electrodes.
Yeah, good. So in some sense, it's magical, but it's not actually magic. It's science. It's based on
Yes.
understood principles of physics. We'll take a very short break. We'll come back. After the break, we are going to discuss his and his colleague Jyoti Shah's work in much more detail. How this whole work is environmentally friendly, green. We'll take a very short break. Keep watching Eureka. Welcome back to Eureka, and we are having a very interesting conversation with Dr. R.K. Kotnala, who is a chief scientist and also heads the environmental division of National Physical Laboratory, a constituent unit of CSIR, and his discovery of generating electricity from just water has caught international attention. This work You know, like the story goes that Rama was in Vanvas for about 14 years. You took about more than 14 years to complete this work. You and your colleague Jyotisha.
Jyotisha.
Can you say a few words about your colleague Jyotisha before we further discuss about this discovery?
Dr. Jyotisha started as a PhD program with me for developing this material,
Okay.
how we can dissociate water molecule into ions, and that material was developed during her PhD program, and later on we went for its device making.
Okay.
So she has been with me since beginning till the even today.
Very, very, very interesting. I mean, she had started her career along with you, and then it's continuing even now.
Continuing.
Very, very, very interesting.
And she has got very good scientific career, and she works for me many times. I need not to, I just say that please do this. So she will go for processing this. I say yes, it is how we have got the results. So we have to depend, we keep on discussing together, and this 14 years has taken to come out with a new hydroelectric cell with new material, new device, and even the working principle is also new.
Yeah, as the saying goes, inspiration is 1% and perspiration is 99%. I mean, it takes long time. It's not like just on a day a discovery is made. And usually it's not individual, but a collaboration of like-minded people together is generally which results in a new innovative discovery. And your story also says that. Let me move to another question. I mean, coming back to your device, okay, which essentially uses zinc and silver as anode and cathode, right?
Right.
So in any battery, any cell, I mean, whether it is a dry cell or a wet cell, the cathode and anode gets corroded, degraded over a period of time. That's when you say that the life of the battery is over. So in same way, your cell is also very similar to that, whereas the zinc also will be corroded, the silver will also get corroded. So which means that we might get into a situation where we will have a lot of waste material, right? Which may create a problem for our environment. So how do you are looking at handling this issue?
See, as far as even we talk about a solar cell, we know very well that if they are not working and we have to dispose them, so degradation in nature is a very difficult situation. In this case, again, you are very much right that zinc is will be getting corroded, even silver will be also getting corroded with the time. And when we say that now it is to be thrown away, magnesium ferrite, which is magnesium oxide, iron oxide, and a very little lithium oxide into it. So these oxides, as a main material of the hydroelectric cell, just gets mixed with soil or even water. Nothing is toxic.
Which means that if actually this technology comes into practice, it may not be a burden on the environment. That's a main important point.
Yes, a very important part.
Yeah. So let me move to another question. I mean, you have made the discovery. So most of our minds, what would be uppermost is, when do I see it in the market? When do I go to a local shop and say that give me a hydroelectric cell, and not environmentally polluting, today's dry cell or a wet cell? When can we do that?
In this, we have to go one step ahead, which is a industrial R&D. If some industry comes, or even the government creates some new energy institute, so there we can develop it. And to me, it appears within 1.5 years we can do that job, so that we can come out with a small workable product, not workable device, because workable device I have got with me. These things need a ultimately market.
So this process, what one can call as mind to market, what are all the steps that is essentially required so that actually your invention or your discovery can be a product which people can use in their daily life? What are all the in-between stages which will be required?
Only one step I have told you, industrial R&D. Industrial R&D means like even the context which you are putting, how the water will be put on cell. So some design is to be there. Now once these hydroelectric cells are to be connected in series and parallel, which we know that how the resistance.
So the whole manufacturing processes, including the raw material, and then also finally devising it in the particular way which is usable.
Specifically, we are more concerned on device final packaging and their contacts and some technical problems associated with it, which I can call it an engineering problem as well.
Okay, okay.
As far as question of production is said, because in lab we are able to produce even 4 by 4 inch cell and not one. In the furnace which we have got, we could do 4 cells together. Small cells we are able to produce in hundreds also.
Okay.
It is not the case that it cannot be produced. But when it goes to market as a product, then economics comes as one important factor. For that, definitely we should have production type of equipments, where again industrial R&D part, which we see the one step, that is also needed.
Very, very interesting. I mean, we are having a very interesting conversation, and we had a really good look at his new invention, hydroelectric cell. We'll take a very short break. Keep watching Eureka. After the break, we are going to talk about his other areas of research. Have you heard of something called spintronics? Yeah, it's very similar to electronics. We're going to understand what it is, what was his work, other than this hydroelectric cell. After the break, keep watching Eureka. Welcome back to Eureka, and we are having a very interesting conversation with Dr. R.K. Kotnala, Chief Scientist and also heading the Environmental Division of National Physical Laboratory, a constant unit of CSIR. In fact, how did you get into science? What inspired you into come to this area? Is it just accident that you got into this job, so you are doing this work, or even as a student, you were kind of motivated to become a scientist?
When I was a 10th class student, I had read a news.
Okay.
In fact, it was in editorial of Hindustan Times, way back around 40 years before.
Okay, around 75 or so, right?
1975, around. And there I read about solar cell.
Solar cell.
Solar cell.
Okay.
It was, thought of using in satellite that time. So I was fascinated with that, how will come sunlight falls on something like a silicon. I was not aware of there is a PN junction in it. It is a solar cell named as, and how it will produce electricity. So that curiosity, then I decided if I have to go for a research, I will go for that only.
That's very interesting. Actually, this tells a very important lesson for us in India. If you want to inspire young minds, this kind of a popularization of science is a very, very important aspect. I mean, it can inspire people like you to come into sciences. That's interesting. And this is also very interesting that one of your earlier works has been in the area of solar cells, right?
Right.
So what did you do in solar cell research?
In fact, I am first PhD on silicon solar cell in India.
Okay.
It was just initiated in India to work on silicon solar cell. And what we were trying that time, in the initial stage, we were copying that how solar cell can be fabricated in the lab. Later on, we improved its processing and to make it a low cost solar cell, so that it can be used for public, not for the satellite.
Not only for the satellite. Satellite, it doesn't matter even if it is costly. I mean, you are going to put only a small amount. It doesn't matter. It's okay. But when you want to have a public utility, you need to be looking at economics, right?
So we worked on for terrestrial solar cell, low cost, and then we developed one process. So there also I have got a proven research papers in journals, which showed that yes, we can go for low cost solar cell.
Yeah. The other area which is also very interesting, which you have worked, is some area called as spintronics. So what is this spintronics?
Spintronic is the frontier area on magnetic materials because I had a background of the magnetic materials as well.
Okay.
And spintronic device, which they are to be used as a very low powered, like a microwatt, even a picowatt power they can be run. There we need a manipulation of the electron.
Okay.
But in spintronic, we are manipulating orientation of electron spin.
Okay. Whether the electron is spin like this or whether electron is spin like this.
Yes,
That is on clockwise or anti-clockwise. That's what you are kind of.
No, because let's say we talk about the clockwise, and then the clockwise is not the only one electron. There are trillions to trillion electron in a material in a very small area. Then what we do in this spintronic, we control the orientation of these one.
Okay.
Like a light polarization. So we control their spin, and by controlling the spin, we can use them as a device. And those devices are like multiferric devices, even spin Hall effects. So on all those material, I have been working, and to finally make out of it a device, magnetic tunnel junction.
Magnetic tunnel?
Tunnel junction.
Okay. So what does it do?
It acts as a fast switching device.
Okay.
And on the other hand, if I am using the only material, then the different orientation of the spin of electron can be used as storage of memory.
Okay. So which means that, for example, a computer stores 0 and 1.
Right.
So you basically say that if it is spinning clockwise, it's 0. If it is spinning counterclockwise, it's 1. And then by controlling it, you can actually store some data in terms of spins of the electron. Is that what you are saying?
A spin of only one type at different orientation. Means if it's a spin up. So all spin up will be put together in a one material, special materials we develop.
Okay.
So those are to be controlled. Their orientation is
Just to
controlled.
control, and then
That is stored as information.
How that will be better than what we have today of storage, memory storage devices?
At the moment we are using the transistors, FETs.
Yeah.
So those memories, like a flash memory we talk about. Earlier we were using magnetic material. We are using in a hard disk. We still use the magnetic materials. So compared to them, with this kind of a spintronic devices, we are able to reduce the noise, and they consume very less energy.
Okay.
And they are fast.
So per unit area, the storage can also be.
Storage capacity is also quite high.
In this, what's your current area? I mean, like both in solar cell and spintronics. What is that basic question that you are trying to address today?
In case of a hydroelectric cell, I consider it to be only important project, or I'll say for my lifetime achievement. Of course, Dr. Jyoti Shah is also with me.
Yeah.
Because as a scientist, we normally see that have you published 100 papers, 1 century in journals. I have already published more than 362 papers in international journals.
Okay.
But I feel creation of hydroelectric cell, the material, device, and moreover, interesting part of it, every material, every raw material is from India.
Okay.
And abundantly available. In case of, on the other hand, silicon solar cell we talk. So there, we don't produce even silicon.
Yeah.
And even technology, even the device, all was invented outside. But here we have invention here only, and it is a low cost technology in all the way compared to solar cell or a fuel cell.
Okay. So compared to those various cells, I mean, hydroelectric cell is really low cost.
Yes, right.
See, one of the major challenges for expansion of solar energy is land. I mean, if you want to put up a solar farm, you need a land, right? I mean, and that land cannot be in faraway places, but then you cannot, bring the electricity and things. When there are various issues related to land, how does that fare with your invention? What will be your impact on environment, let's say land use?
Land use. If we talk about solar cell, you need a 100-meter square area to produce 1 kilowatt power.
That's a rule of the thumb.
It's a rule of thumb, approximately same. And then you need a particular inclination, and the sun sign depends, because the efficiency which we quote like 18%, 20%, that is during the daytime, midday.
Midday, yes.
Otherwise, it decreases. In this case, hydroelectric cell, we don't need that much area. It needs a very small, because we can just pack these, because these are flat plates and those flat plates can be stacked together.
Like you stack biscuits one after another.
One after the other, and the water is already put into that.
Okay.
Or we can pour it from outside, external means. So area will be reduced so drastically. Of course, we have not calculated compared to solar cell, because you don't need any light for it. So you just pack it as much as, and that you can put all together. And on the one, let's say you have made a one battery out of the hydroelectric cells combination. One is there, then you can put another battery on top of it.
So you
on
can
top
use
of
three-dimensional.
So we can.
It's not just only the area, but three-dimensional space.
We need not to spread it like this.
Yeah.
So that way it is very important.
Very, very interesting. I mean, we could have had much more conversation. We could have discussed many things more, but then time is a constraint. We would end this conversation here, but it was a very, very wonderful experience of knowing that some really revolutionary research work has happened in our Indian lab, and we are able to project it to our audience through Rajya Sabha Television. Keep watching Eureka. We'll come back with another episode next week with a conversation with another Indian scientist. Keep watching Eureka.